All right, welcome. I am super excited to go over this new scan option, so much so that I actually created a second business name so that I could reach a different audience than I'm used to, specifically this younger generation who seems to be really into skincare. However, when we're using topicals, coming from lots and lots of personal experience with clients with really severe skin issues, the topical stuff is not most often going to get to the root of the problem. And I wanted to create something that is going to show the physical aspects of why things are showing up on the skin, as well as the emotional and the energetic, and then also help to determine what types of topicals are going to be the most valuable instead of just spending sometimes thousands of dollars on topical skincare because it sounds like you need it. So I definitely can relate because of my history with such severe skin issues. But I want to get into the scan now. So this is my template for the scan results. If you all are familiar with bioenergetic testing at all, you know that I get back the raw data, which is in usually no particular order, and I have to make sense of it. So I've created this PDF that everyone's will say something different. Obviously, the results are going to look differently depending on your skin issue and what's coming up for you specifically, but it'll have very similar categories. So on this first page, we are going to see the stress organs, and already you can see a big theme for lots of detox and elimination organs resonating, the digestive system and the intestinal mucosa, which is going to affect the inflammation coming through, or can be a red flag for inflammation in the small intestine, like bacteria or yeast overgrowth. We know that the skin has its own HPA axis, so we see the nervous system as well as the adrenal glands resonating. We see the spleen, which in TCM, the spleen can be or the spleen needs a lot of care in relation to damp, quote unquote, types of conditions. So things like eczema and heat and inflammation in the skin, candida and fungal overgrowth, things like that. And then we can also see the pineal gland, which can be a red flag, as well as the adrenals for circadian mismatch. If you guys know my story, I am really serious about circadian rhythms. However, I was traveling the world and had a lot of stress coming from international travel and then sleeping in places that I could not get pitch black at night. And even just now moving into my new apartment, we just put up the blackout curtains in the bedroom. So it was pretty bright at night, which was driving me crazy. And I could really see that showing up on the my circadian rhythm, my sleep scores. Pineal gland can also be related to like the third eye. So like intuition and connection to source, which I would say is a big like energetic spiritual theme for me. Another, probably one of the most major factors in on this scan that helps to understand why the skin is always showing so much stress. So I no longer have the body-wide eczema anymore. However, I do still have some breakouts, some clogged pores, dry skin, itchy skin in certain places. I was hoping it would go away after we finished traveling because international travel, those flights really, really affect me and it can take me a while to recover from them. But you can see here, liver phase 2 detox. This is where you're going to be conjugating the fat soluble toxin that's made into something that's actually more reactive, and and phase 2 is where we make it water soluble so that we can get rid of it. This is going to be the glutathione pathway, the sulfate pathway. So this is sulfur metabolism that would be in the category of phase 2 liver detox. And then we can see sulfur here and molybdenum. So molybdenum is really important for sulfite to sulfate conversion. It also inhibits candida and helps with copper metabolism. The sulfur pathway can be stressed for a variety of reasons. I know personally that this comes up for me often because I have a SNP in the enzyme CBS, and it is that gene is upregulated. So what happens in these situations is sulfur gets pushed through that pathway really, really fast, and you actually create more ammonia in the body. And ammonia can affect your pH. So we see here another marker for acid-base buffering. What ammonia does when your body is overproducing it and maybe can't get rid of it because the liver actually has to get rid of ammonia, that ammonia will deplete or lower your carbon dioxide in the blood, which will cause more alkaline blood. And then because carbon dioxide actually helps your hemoglobin release oxygen to get to the cells to be able to make ATP or energy. And a byproduct of making ATP or energy is also making more carbon dioxide, as well as cellular exclusion zone deuterium depleted water. If we've got more ammonia being produced, we've got less carbon dioxide, then we get in this cycle where our cells are not making enough energy, but they're also not making that cellular water, which keeps us cellularly hydrated. And they're also not making more carbon dioxide as a waste to then keep that cycle going. You can also see here water deficiency or hydration literally also resonated for me. So there's another marker of that dehydration. And then also the cell salt NatMer, which is actually probably the most popular cell salt I see resonate for the women that I work with. It specifically helps with water distribution, moisture balance, and hydrochloric acid production, which you see also resonated as low as the enzyme. And hydrochloric acid is our stomach acid. So we want the stomach to be nice and acidic, but when the pH of the body is off, oftentimes we've got less acidity in the gut, we've got more acidity in the tissues. Our cells switch to a type of metabolism that is not using oxygen because it's not able to get the oxygen. And then we're stuck in that vicious cycle of making like acids and inflame it, and we feel very inflamed. So that's the biggest thing that stands out. We're also going to see some more like boron, really important for estrogen metabolism, and progesterone also resonated as low. Progesterone is something that has been up and down for me in my journey, but estrogen dominance is for sure something that I have probably had my entire life. I'm 40 now, so on my lab work, estrogen's pretty normal, but in relationship to the progesterone, it still would be considered estrogen dominance. And then iodine almost always comes up for me. I always talk about how I was a competitive swimmer and just lived in chlorine. Chlorine is a halogen chemical and can displace iodine, so I assume that's why I'm kind of always deficient. When I take iodine, it leaves me incredibly stimulated, even a really small dose, so I try to get it in with food. The sensitivities, I will show up with IgE reactions to shellfish if I do like a blood test, so that makes sense. And then nickel. Nickel is also heavily related to eczema. You can find lots and lots of research on high amounts of nickel being more of a trigger for people, kids and adults who have eczema, but also people can have a nickel allergy. So oftentimes chocolate will come up for me on a scan too as like a sensitivity because it can be really high in nickel. And then some people can have just dermatitis related to touching nickel. I don't have that touching nickel sensitivity, but nickel and eczema make a lot of sense. Then we have some fat-soluble vitamins. So vitamin D, vitamin E's, antioxidants, cell membranes is also a big theme for me. And then EPA, which has come up for me several times, also a omega-3. And then we also see regulation of insulin secretion. Blood sugar has most likely been a little bit wonky for me coming out of all this international travel. I definitely have since I've been back, been a lot more strict about what I'm eating because we pretty much we didn't have a good choice in some of the places in Asia we were staying in, so I had to make do. Inflammation, though, here's my favorite section, the emotional section. Feelings of anger or fear, definitely big theme. Histamine, mast cell, you are going to find a lot of women who experience this who just have so much anger and rage, not speaking up for themselves, either having to be strong or the oldest child. Um, Fawn response, and I definitely can relate to that. Eczema, feeling interfered with or prevented from acting. So I spoke about this on my stories the other day, actually. I feel like because I had so much shame about who I was growing up, I was always trying to be different, be another person, look like a different person. If somebody I thought was cool liked something, I would be easily influenced to also liking that thing. And so, of course, it makes sense. The skin is who you are that people can see. So, if you have a skin symptom or a skin issue, it gives you that excuse to hide, to completely be out of being seen, to not have to be vulnerable. It gave me an excuse to say no when could never say no before to people, places, and things. And so you'll oftentimes see like in German new medicine, eczema is a separation conflict, and felt like I had been separated from myself for most of my life. And then sleep, nervousness, and insomnia. I really don't have insomnia, but the nervous system sympathetic dominance is something I can relate to. Now, pathogens, always remember this does not mean a diagnosis. Staph on the skin or staph in the nose can be a big root cause of a lot of skin symptoms when it's imbalanced, and that's going to go back to the pH of the body. The skin also needs to be really acidic, just like the gut. And then lots of parasite signatures resonated for me. I have kind of always resonated with lots of parasites. I think of that in the energetic realm, the the physical realm. pH being too alkaline is going to breed more candida, more parasites. And then also what do parasites do? They help to feed on chemicals, metals. They absorb those things also. For toxins, always lots of metals will come up. Microwave energies is common as well. So electromagnetic signatures. I work on a computer all day, so maybe that has something to do with it as well. Because I don't really use a microwave. Solvents, fertilizers, acid rains almost always comes up for people. Cell markers, we already talked about the pH, the cellular hydration, the water balance. In German new medicine, the kidney collecting tubule conflict is feeling like you're a fish out of water, which is why the body wants to hold on to more water because it's biologically meaningful. So the kidneys did resonate, and as a solution, we'll get there in a second. But the kidney oil also resonated. Also in TCM, the kidneys are the chi of the body, and the adrenals and the kidneys are connected. And so there's that piece of like burnout. I did go through topical steroid withdrawal, which is just like complete collapse, I would say, of your adrenal system. For diets, blood type eating, and what's funny is I don't actually know my blood type, but this has come up for me on Bioenergetics before, so I feel like I need to find out. Then we had some immune markers, some inflammatory cytokines, which shows that the immune system is chronically always active. Of course, from having mast cell and even just being very immune activated in my childhood and in my adulthood, I'm not surprised to see this. And then there was a couple teeth which resonated, and I do need to go to the dentist. But sometimes, even though they say toxicity disturbance, it can also be related to the energy meridians of the body as well. I have been to the dentist in Bangkok probably like 5 months ago, so it's about time. And then sometimes spinal markers will resonate, or just other miscellaneous. So I just left that blank. Then let's look at the support. So there's still going to be some support for the internals. And it doesn't mean you need to take all of these things. Again, it's going to help understand how can I support my body? What are some options? Or maybe is this coming up because of one of those other markers? So, for example, feverfew, this is an herb that's really anti-inflammatory. It is vasodilatory, which I thought was interesting because usually with your skin and histamine, that's already a vasodilator, and I feel like you you don't necessarily want more of that. But feverfew also helps to lower IL-6, which is an inflammatory cytokine. Bee propolis I have loved for many, many years. I found it during my mold phase. I still use it in my home, like with diffusing it, but I could probably get some more to take internally. I have actually taken this cartilage peptide bioregulator before and probably can should go get it again. But sulfur is also part of rebuilding the connective tissue. So if your body is burning through it, making ammonia, ammonia also degrades and can break down some of that connective tissue too. So, and I mentioned before, I've experienced hypermobility pretty much my whole life, but I didn't really feel pain from it until after I got sick. So again, probably that sulfur pathway, making too much ammonia, adrenal and cortisol dysregulation can be a catabolic state, so breaking down tissue and then not having enough of that sulfur converted into sulfate to actually rebuild the matrix. Niacinamide rebuilds the skin barrier. It also is like one of the first steps in making ATP. So again, we talked about that sodium chloride. You can take it as a cell salt, very gentle. And then I am actually doing bicarbonates. I'm doing trisalts already. And then here's where the scan is also super cool. So it's also going to give you a skincare routine of some options if you have acute inflammation, which everything that came up for here was kind of related to eczema, which I thought was fitting because, I'm not filling out any forms saying I have eczema. So the scan is just knowing of that history and maybe some of the itchy spots around my eyes. Could definitely use some of these things. It also is going to resonate with a cleanser, an oil, or a serum. So two things resonated here. A face cream or an oil for repair, and then either like specific targeted care, like a mask or like this eye elixir resonated. My lips are probably my biggest problem area still because I used Protopic on them for about a year and a half, 2 years, which was not a steroid. However, it has its own set of withdrawal. And ever since then, my lips have been very dry and cracked. Here's that kidney filtration oil. So this is a topical oil. I would probably add this into like a castor oil pack over the kidneys. And then hair and scalp support too. So I didn't even mention that I had any issues here, but these absolutely make sense for some of the scalp itchiness and dryness that I have there too. For me, everything that resonated was what in these three categories. So I just put the links here, but whatever comes up for you, we have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different products in here. Oh, actually, Sky and Soul, I didn't put that link here, but for you, I will be putting the links where you can find pretty much everything that comes up for you, and then you can find it there. So super cool. I have used a few of these products from Olive Tree people. I love their face oils. My skin was really good before we left for international travel, so I'm excited to rebuy some of that stuff. But yeah, this scan is going to be an intro price of $199, and it'll come with a 30-minute call with me to review it and go over everything. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to me. I made a whole new Instagram for this company, but you can also reach out to me at Amanda Panacea. So I am so excited to see some of these first scans that come out and start to hopefully get rid of some of these skin issues with you guys.